Hello and welcome to another tier list. I know this time isn't a music tier list, it's something a little bit different, a change of pace perhaps, although I probably will be releasing that quite soon, so we're nearing the end. But yes, so today, and because I've been grinding a lot of engineering and engineering has become one of my favorite skills, I decided to bring you the Dungeoneering bosses tier list. I have every single boss here that you can find in engineering from all of the 5 types of floors. Right, 6 boss per type, so it's 5 types, 30 bosses in total. Yeah, it's 30 bosses in total. I don't know why the fucking thing doesn't look... Why, like, every single time my images seem to have, like, an issue, it doesn't look centered, right? Like, it looks a little bit above... Whatever, fucking... Point being, in this tier list, I'm essentially just gonna rate the bosses based on... well, my fucking opinion, and what I value the most, but essentially it's gonna be a mix of, are they fast to do, are they cumbersome, are they easy, are their mechanics cool, etc, etc, etc. So without further ado, let's actually get into the first boss, and the first boss is the gluttonous Behemoth. Now this boss, it's pretty much the quintessential RuneScape boss. I love this boss personally. One of the things that it has is that essentially there's a mechanic where it eats after it gets low HP, so it starts regenerating HP. The way you counter that is by just sitting in front of the boss, so the boss can't eat, but you do take increasing damage because you do take melee damage. I mean, with EOC you really don't, and the boss is really low level, but it's a nice mechanic, and honestly, the boss is incredibly simple. You just kill it, there's not much to it, you just click on it, and it's actually quite fast. Honestly, Gluttonous Behemoth is the quintessential Dungeoneering boss in my opinion, and it's a deserved S tier. Now, next up we have Astia Frostweb. So this is essentially a mage boss, just throws spells at you and shit. For the most part, it's fine, I guess, like, again, you must just click on it to kill it. Sometimes it spawns spiders, sometimes it freezes you, which can be annoying if it freezes you before you kill her, because then you want to finish that engine and you have to use freedom. If you don't have freedom, or it's in cooldown or something, it gets a bit annoying, but nothing too major. The one thing that is really annoying about this boss, however, is the fact that it can pray against every single style, and bosses, contrary to players, sometimes actually have a 100% rate of defense, so the prayers work like before EOC. So in this case, usually you'll have a specific style, and there's gonna be times where you can do damage, making the boss slower, which can be a bit annoying. However, at least from my experience, she doesn't camp the same prayer for too long most of the time, so, and her HP is also not that high, so it can be pretty easy to one-shot. But yeah, it's an A tier. Next up we have Icy Bones. This boss just sort of like, goes into melee range and creates like a little arena of ice spikes. I don't know if it does anything if you are in the arena or something. Again, like most of my Dungeoneering boss experience at least has been after EOC, and EOC has made a lot of this trivial, so I don't know, but so I don't really know the mechanic of this boss, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's fast boss, super simple, nothing much to it, although I don't find the mechanics super exciting, but still, it's fast, it's easy, can't blame it too much. A tier. Next up we have the Luminescent Ice Fiend. Oh my, this is probably one of the most iconic bosses for all of the wrong reasons in the game. This boss essentially has a mechanic where twice, it used to be 4 times by the way per kill, but twice per kill it will become immune, and it will like drop things from the ceiling, so you have to run around to not get hit by them. It's pretty easy mechanic to dodge. I think the mechanic is actually really fun when you first do it. Problem is, it's fun when you first do it. After that, it becomes really fucking annoying to have to deal with this boss, especially because the boss becomes immune, so it's like, it's not even that it's down to your skill to like, run and press a key to like do an ability and then run the ability, like there's no skill to it, it's just run, the boss is immune, and it's essentially an auto-scroller there, and it doesn't make the boss very fun in my opinion, especially if you are grinding Dungeoneering as a whole. Yeah, it's really annoying, and again, it used to be 4 up until a couple of months ago, and then it was changed to 2, and still 2 is still really annoying. So in terms of grinding, and this is the type of mechanic that it's fun when you first do it, but when you have to grind it, it becomes one of the worst things ever. So getting this boss is it's essentially just a time lost compared to all of the other ones, and honestly, I really fucking dislike it. So F tier for the Luminescent Ice Wind. Next up we have Plane Freezer Lakhrahnaz? Something along those lines. There's way too many H's in that fucking word, but yeah, it's Lakhrahnaz or Lakhrahnaz, whatever. This is essentially like one of the eye bosses, but this one being in the frost like floors, the frozen floors. Essentially just fighting an arena that is icy, and sometimes the boss will, scare you and you will ice slide away from him. Unless you have the elite outfit dungeon, which essentially makes it so icy floors no longer make you slide around, so it makes this boss into just literally a normal monster. So yeah, before that, however, it's fine. I don't like the boss too much, honestly. I think that I get this mechanic, but they don't really do anything with it, because you just need to ice next to the boss in order to be able to kill it. And that's pretty much it. Like, there's no like actual little mini game that you have to do with it for extra damage or something. Nothing. It's just like, yeah, so pretty weak. A lot of wasted potential in my opinion. It became just a normal minion after the elite outfit, so D tier. And lastly, for the frozen floors, we have Tokash the Bloodchiller. This boss sometimes freezes you, but other than that, like, it's a pretty normal monster. I don't really have much to say about it. It is a demon, so there are two types of monster throughout the Dungeoneering bosses that are consistent. It's what are they called? The Seekers, I think it's what they're called, and the demons. So every single type of floor you have 5 demons and you have 5 Seekers, and the other bosses are the ones that sort of vary from floor to floor, although sometimes you do have like the Rummerknot and the Dreadnought, right, which are still, I guess, different versions of each other. But yeah, essentially these are the two bosses that are mostly, I guess, just an upgrade, a direct upgrade, while the others are more just stuff you sort of encounter. But overall, yeah, this boss is just sort of normal. I guess, it was a fun boss before UC, after UC, just, hey, but it has a cool design, so, it's a C tier. Next up we have the Skeletal Horde. I really dislike, I like the idea, I don't like the execution. So the idea is that essentially you have to protect, I guess, the Skin Weaver, which can also heal you, fun fact. But first of all, I don't like the fact that you need to speak to the Skin Weaver in order to start the boss fight and to end it. I think that just makes it really confusing, because it doesn't work like that for any other boss. Any other of these bosses, you go in, you kill it, that's it. For this boss you need to go in, speak with the Skin Weaver, defeat the skeletons, and then speak with the Skin Weaver again to finish the floor. Just really weird how they lay that out. I think that should be changed. Jagex, look at it. But yeah, overall it's just a sort of, just minion fucking rush type thing, where like you just have a bunch of skeletons, they come from like crypts, and you need to close the crypts every once in a while. So it's kind of an auto-scroller, and yeah, that doesn't make it too much fun. It's not super fast, but it's also not super engaging. I think it would have been better if you just had a set amount of skeletons that you, like they were all already in the room and you just had to kill, because ultimately you just, or like, maybe use a resource or something like that to close the crypt, to be more based on your actions as opposed to just sitting there and waiting for it. So yeah, this is a F tier. It's probably the worst boss in the game, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Next up we have the Hobgoblin Geomancer. This boss is pretty much the same thing as like Astia Frostweb, it's essentially like, it's a very easy boss. Sometimes the boss will like bind you and will teleport next to you, which makes it a bit annoying, because there's like a few seconds there that you're not doing DPS for no fucking reason at all. But I guess, again, it's one of those bosses where maybe it was fun once it first came out, but yeah, like, when you grind a lot of these bosses, when you grind a lot of Dungeoneering and you have to fight a lot of these bosses over and over and over, they don't become very fun, especially if you're like me, which I like to grind small floors, because I can grind a lot of them an hour, so, I get a few resets I can get like 2 to 3 resets a day sometimes, so it's a lot of XP right from resets, so yeah, having to fight a lot of these bosses, not very fun. I'll give this one a B tier. Next up we have the Bulwark Beast, and essentially this boss is like, it has a lot of defense, but if you have a pickaxe and you attack it with a pickaxe, it will like reduce its defense, but with the OC, because of the accuracy that you have, you just like blast through the boss. So, you know, honestly, it's an easy boss, it's completely fine. I guess it could, you know, be the continuation of the Behemoth, although not entirely, but whatever. You know, like, again, like a lot of these bosses here, outside of the Seekers and the Demons, some of them sometimes do have a certain, you know, like theme, like magic, for example, with Frostweb and Runewright, right? You know, like, yeah, outside of those, you know, they're a bit more all over the place. The Bulwark Beast, it was sort of going for being a gluttonous behemoth type deal. I like the mechanic, but in EOC it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. Because contrary to the gluttonous behemoth, where even now the mechanic, like you can still engage with the mechanic to make your kill a little bit faster, right? The Bulwark Beast, you don't, you just kill it and that's pretty much it. I think it also has an attack that does a lot of damage, and I never understood it, but yeah, outside of that, I would give it a nice A tier. It's not too hard, it's not, you know, too slow, so that's pretty good. Next up we have the Unholy Cursebearer. So this is a magic boss, and first of all, the room is way smaller than the rest for some reason. Like all of these rooms are all the same size except for this one. This one's a bit smaller. This is the first time they've encountered that. Yeah, the Unholy Cursebearer is just magic, and over time it will degrade your combat stats. So what you need to do is drink in a fountain that will restore your stats, but sap your HP. You know, kind of a fun mechanic, like a race against the clock type thing, you know, like a DPS check. Can be fun. When you are a level, you just blast through the boss. And to make matters worse, if you have the Elite Garasian outfit, which boosts your stats, including your combat stats, the effect just doesn't take effect, because every time it degrades, your stats then get boosted back up again. So it literally takes away the only mechanic that the boss even has to begin with. Not that it has much of a mechanic, because again, if you're high level, you will just blast through it thanks to EOC. So yeah, but overall I like the idea, I think it's pretty good. Again, if it wasn't for the Elite Garasian outfit, you know, maybe there was still something to the mechanic, but yeah, thanks to it there is not. But again, I would say it's a solid A tier, honestly. Oh, I mean, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm not exactly going for, like, you know, within the tiers themselves. I don't care too much about that, I just care about, like, the tiers, not within the tiers. So, you know, this being here could be the same as being there, and that order doesn't matter, only the vertical order matters, the horizontal doesn't. Next up we have another Seeker, Shadow Forger Ihlakhizan, I think it's called. At least, you know, the H is there, so you need to pronounce it Ihlakhizan, you know. You gotta give it anyway. Yeah, this one, again, when you are at level, you just sort of go in, blast through it, that's pretty much it, that's all there is to it. However, it actually has a pretty fun mechanic. Every once in a while the boss will like glow and like explode, and every time it does that, it will drain your stats. Again, doesn't really matter too much if you have the Garasian outfit, because you can just get your stats back up, but if you don't have it, the way you actually do it is by hiding behind the pillars, so the attack doesn't actually, you know, affect you. So you're like shielded against it, which is why the boss drops shields, right? You know, pretty thematically, you know, Jagex been pretty smart. But yeah, so, you know, other than that, I think the attack's pretty cool. I think that, unfortunately, again, like, when you're eye level, you just blast through the boss, there's not much to it, but still, I actually do enjoy the mechanic. I think it's really good. It's, again, a quintessential mechanic for Dungeoneering. I'm gonna give it a tier. And another boss, we have Har'Lakk the Pummeler, but this boss will essentially just create, like, rifts on the ground, because over time, the boss's defense will increase. So when he spawns these pools, they damage you really quickly, but if you lure the boss to them, the damage or the defense of the boss starts going down, so you can have a more easier time damaging it. So I actually really like that mechanic, I think it's really smart. Again, when you are high level, you just sort of go in, blaze through the boss, be done with it. Most of the times you won't even spawn the rifts, and you will just, yeah, just death before, so... Again, I like the theory of it, but, you know, I don't get to use it all that much. But honestly, when you're low level, I think it's pretty a cool mechanic. Unfortunately, the boss, by the time you use the mechanic, usually you use the mechanic when you're super low level, but by the time you actually can fight the boss equally, you no longer will probably use the mechanic. So you know, there's that. But overall, I really like the boss. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good highlight. Again, you know, it's again like a lot of these bosses have one mechanic that they do, and you know that is the gist of it. And for pre-OC and for how many bosses there are, I actually quite enjoy it. So A tier. Next up we have the Rubbernaut. So this usually doesn't have a lot of HP, and it will just like sometimes do an attack where it will charge at you, and if you don't dodge away it will bash you into the wall, doing a lot of damage and like stunning you and whatnot. That can be a bit annoying, but given the low HP that the boss has, most of the time you just kill it and move on, and that's pretty much it. So while I guess the mechanic is fun, yeah, I'm gonna give it a C tier. Next up we have Stomp. Stomp has essentially the same thing as the Luminescent Icewind, where it's like there's 3 phases, and after you damage it a certain amount of times, or do a certain amount of damage, there will be things that will spawn like these crystals, and then you'll need to grab them and put those crystals in the pedestals that the boss has within the same sequence of the boss to make the boss vulnerable and sort of go to the next phase. Personally, there's also rocks that fall that you need to sometimes mine to unblock your way. This boss is so slow, and it's really not fun. It's not fun to run around and to have, you know, deal with the rocks and everything. It's just really annoying overall. Honestly, I don't know what I find more annoying, these or the Luminescent Icewind, but I think Stomp probably takes that. And I guess we have a new worst boss in the game, at least so far. So, yeah, I really don't like Stomp. I don't know, like, any boss that has, like, phases that you need to do something and you can't damage the boss, to me, is really bad. Because, like, again, players are gonna, like, grind the skill. So while a lot of these bosses are fun, like, a lot of these bosses over here have mechanics that are fun at first, and when you are like level, you sort of don't even need to deal with those mechanics, right? So it's just sort of, you know, cool that they have mechanics, but you don't always need to engage with them when it comes to the grind, which is great because, you know, but that's the problem with these bosses down here, is that, yeah, they have mechanics that you need to engage with, but when you're grinding them, it makes you weight the mechanics even more, right? And Stomp is the perfect example of that, so absolute F tier. Next up we have Har'Lakk the Riftsplitter, which I was confusing with the Pummeler. So this boss is just a normal demon boss. Sometimes it will like spawn things from, you know, the sky that will drop on you, that will like rapidly damage you, and will, I think, also drain stats. Doesn't happen too often, doesn't have a lot of HP for the most part, it's just sort of there, and yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna put it in like C tier. Next up we have Lexicus Runewright. So yeah, this is a boss that just sort of attacks you with magic. Sometimes it spawns books that will attack you, and sometimes it spawns a book barrage that if you don't move out of the way, you will do a lot of damage. Which I guess is fun, but again, doesn't have a lot of HP, not a big deal. It's pretty easy to grind, so it's a pretty easy B tier. Next up we have Sagittaire, like again another boss where this boss has very low HP. In fact, when I was grinding this on no bank, I would literally just put the, what was the ability called? The one like burns, like I think it's called combustion or whatever. You know, the one that just damages the target over time. And I would do 500 damage, and then he would do the animation, and then 500 damage, would do the animation, 500 damage, would do the animation. So it's like most of the fight I'm not even actually fighting the boss, I'm just waiting for it to go through the motions until I can finally end the floor. I also don't really like that if you're next to the boss, sometimes it will like stun you, or like not stun you, but bind you, and then you lose your ability to run. It's just really annoying, and there's also another thing, which is you have sort of this spiral shape of a room, which looks cool, but to navigate it's really bad, because the boss will spawn in opposite sides, and because again you don't actually like fully fight the boss, yeah, can be a bit of an issue. I wouldn't say it's as bad as, you know, maybe Stomp or Skeletal Horde. I probably wouldn't say it's better than Luminescent Icewind, primarily because Luminescent Icewind was changed to only be twice instead of 4 times. I think that if Sagittaire was also only 2 times, I think it would have been way better of a boss to fight than Luminescent Icewind, but yeah, obviously it's another F tier. And the last of furnished floors we have the Nightgazer Yk'Lagor, I think that's what's called. So essentially this boss, it's another Seeker boss, so it has the thematic of eyes and stuff like that. You have pillars around that you need to essentially light to like sort of blind the boss, and each pillar lit makes it so you do 25% of damage to the boss, so when all of them are, you know, lit, you do 100% of damage to the boss. But yeah, it's a boss that doesn't really, you know, get too much, I guess. It has, I guess, 2 phases, because it has 2 HP bars, but nothing too amazing. The most fun I had with this boss is just going in, lighting a pillar, surging to the other pillar, and then surging to the other pillar, and you do like 75% damage, which with EOC is like really good, and you just kill the boss. Again, it's one of the bosses like up here where it's like they have the mechanics. Unfortunately, you are obligated to interact with the mechanics, so you can just skip it like this, but it's also not that obligation that it's too bad. You know, most of the times you're gonna want to surge to the boss and move to like the back of the arena, because there's where the dungeon ends. So yeah, it's not too much of an inconvenience. I personally actually like the boss, but you know, I'm gonna I don't know, honestly, like where do I put this? You know, fuck it, I'm gonna put a date here, why not? Next up, the Skeletal Trio. So this is just, you know, a melee, magic and ranged skeletons, and again, they don't have a big HP bar or a pull bar. They are annoying to kill, however, because just like Astir Frostwell, for example, they have protection prayers, and because they're 3, sometimes they can just all have the same protection prayer. So if you're doing magic solo floors, like, and you have magic, yeah, good luck, you know, doing with the fucking bosses, because they will change the protection prayers eventually, but it can be such a huge time loss, especially because oftentimes what ends happening is you burst the skeleton down, and then both of the other 2 change to, I usually use magic, so they change to magic, right? And then you're just sitting there, and no joke, sometimes they camp the same prayer for like a minute. And a minute for small floors is such a huge time loss, right? Usually bosses last like 10-20 seconds in small floors, right? It's the other time that you want to wait, so the floor lasts around, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. Usually it lasts way less than 5 minutes, but you know, usually like you want to average around the 3-minute mark for the entire small floor, because that's a good XP rate. These just, you know, 1 minute can be so huge, and yeah, it's honestly really bad. I don't think it's as bad as these down here, because ultimately you can just click on the skeleton and AFK until they eventually change prayers and you kill them, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, honestly, a lot more could have been done with it, so D tier. Next up we have the Runebound Behemoth. So this boss essentially is immune to every single type of attack until you press one of these pillars, which will drop the protection prayer of the boss. So you have one for magic, one for melee, one for ranged. And yeah, you can only damage it with this style once this is down. Then after a while the, you know, protection prayer will come back again, and this pillar will, after a little bit after the protection prayer comes back up again, it will also come back up again. Personally, it's a boss that I don't enjoy too much doing it. You can 2-cycle it for the most part, and I guess there is a certain fun in trying to like burst down the boss to try and 1-cycle it, because then you would save a lot of time. But you know, again, it's a type of boss that was clearly designed with, you know, a team play in mind, which again, Dungeoneering was designed to be done in teams, not necessarily solo, but still nowadays not a lot of people do teams. A lot of people just more do it solo. When you do teams, you're not like sitting there, you know, and everyone has a different style, and you're, you know, actually trying to, you know, it's just like, yeah, we have EOC, you know, just go in, click on the boss, have fun. So, and for that, yeah, I don't think that the Runebound Behemoth is that great. Overall, I also don't think it's necessarily as bad as some of the other here, so I'm gonna put it in D tier, even though I do think that it's better than Skeletal Trio by far. Next up we have the Grave Creeper. Now the Grave Creeper, essentially, you just damage it and then it goes into a grave. It like curses some graves, and those graves, if you're standing in them, it will deal rapid damage, so you have to either blast them and use your prayer, or just stand out of the way, and then the Grave Creeper will come up in a grave, and then you will do that like 4 times. It's not as annoying as Sagittaire, for example, because the animation is way faster and whatnot, although I could do away with that, honestly. It's a bit annoying. One thing that I dislike about this boss is that after the first phase, for some reason, the HP bar just disappears. Like it just disappears. You don't know the HP that the boss is at. Not that it matters, because again, you have EOC, this skill came out before EOC, so it's like you just blast through the boss. But again, you know, sometimes I lose track of, wait, is this like the third phase or the fourth? Am I about to kill the boss, or is there another phase? So it's a bit weird. Other than that, I think the boss is fine, and I think it's a nice idea. Again, a bit undermined by OC, but you know, I think it's nice, it's a bit here. Next up we have the Necrolord. Now the Necrolord is a boss that is behind like these sort of, you know, zombie things, like arms and legs, I guess. Wall, so I guess you need to use ranged or magic, you can't use melee, and it will sometimes spawn, well, zombies to fight you. This boss has incredibly low HP. Like, it's amongst the lowest HP out of most other bosses. It's akin to Sagittaire, for example. And you just go in, you, like, most of the times lasts 5, maybe 10 seconds, that's it. Most of the times, I don't think I remember the last time that it spawned a zombie, so there's that. Again, but at the same time, it's not exactly a very offensive boss or anything like that. It's fast, it's easy, and that's what you like when you're grinding, so I'm gonna put it in C tier. Next up we have another Seeker, Flash Spoiler, Azgenak, I think it's what's called. Yeah, Azgenak. Fuck, like these, again, like, man, are these two, I really put the fucking letters like super big, why are they not bigger? Wait, do my other tier lists suffer from this problem? Whatever. Fucking, this boss is essentially divided into 2 phases. First phase, normal, you just kill it. Second phase, it will like spawn minions, and doesn't have a lot of HP, so you just sort of kill it. That's pretty much it. C tier. And lastly, of the occult floors, we have Yk'Lagor the Thunderous, which this was, first of all, presentation, by far I think the best boss out of every single boss here, because when you enter the room, there's like these wizards holding him down, right? And you're like, oh, I'm just gonna kill the wizards, because that's what I do, and then you're like, oh, I released the boss accidentally. Oops. Right, so, you know, like, pretty cool presentation, then like the boss just actually like coming up and like doing that attack that kills the rest of the wizards, pretty cool. As for the boss itself, most of the time just want to stay away. Sometimes he will grab you towards you, and you can actually free them that, although the game doesn't tell you that you're bound, even though you technically are. Maybe, you know, Jagex, you could tell people that you are fucking bound and you can actually use freedom to fucking unbind yourself. You just want to stay away because he does an attack where he will like split the ground or whatever, and it will take a lot of damage and it will actually fucking kill you. So, but yeah, like after that you just learn how to stay away. Honestly, as a boss to grind, yeah, maybe it's not as good as some others, because you do need to go in, you need to kill the wizards, and then there's a certain animation that the boss needs to go through before you can actually start damaging him and everything. Almost always you will do the bullshit to like grab you and bind you to the spot and whatnot. Can be a bit annoying, but honestly, compared to some of the other bosses that have like mandatory animations and stuff like that, by far, you know, one of the best ones. And you know, I like the boss, I like the vibes of it, I like the presentation of it. I'm gonna give it S tier. Next up, probably we have the favorite boss of everyone, Blink. This boss could have had a lot of potential. It's fucking annoying as shit to fight. So the boss, essentially you have these portals, and it will come out of those portals, and then you have to lift these stones, these pillars, for Blink to slap into them, and then you can damage Blink. First of all, I think that like the game doesn't allow you to damage it enough. You know, sometimes like you damage it like 1000, 2000 damage, and then like, you know, you need to just repeat the same thing again in order to stop him again. I think that, you know, you should just be allowed to dish out as much damage as you can for that period of time. And secondly, and I think that what really makes this boss frustrating is not even the mechanic itself, because I think the mechanic is fine, you know, like it only comes from 2 sides, right? So horizontally and vertically, there's only 2 sides it can spawn, so technically there are 4 rocks that you can like stand at and that you can very easily reach to always stop him. The problem is the amount of damage he does. He just does so much damage. Sometimes you're half away from the fucking arena and he deals so much damage to you, like 3 and 4k at a time. No reason at all, like, because you're not, like, he doesn't eat you with anything or anything like that, right? It's just really annoying, and especially requiring fast reactions. For the most part, it's really annoying. I think I've done this boss like maybe twice without dying, because I have a free death from my Elite Corrosion outfit. thank fuck I do, because honestly, if I didn't, every time I did this boss, I would just incur in like a 10% XP loss, or like 12%, or however much a death is. Because very rarely have I been able to kill this boss without dying. Because for the most part, again, it just damages you a lot, even when you like grab a pillar and you hide behind the pillar, you know, like sometimes the guy just coming out of a portal and you're already damaged and you're like, what did I get damaged from? It's a really frustrating boss to fight. It does way too much fucking damage compared to most of the other bosses in this list, right? Just regular damage. So I think that if they tone down the damage and maybe made, you know, Blink a little bit slower for people to have a bit more time to react, for those that don't have a lot of time to react, I think this boss could actually be super fun. Maybe allow people to also just damage it as much as they can. You know, instead of having an HP cap like most of the other bosses do, like Sagittaire, where after a specific amount of damage it will just go into the animation. Rather than that, just, you know, give players like 5 seconds, you can damage it as much as you can, and then you have to repeat the thing. You know, I think that would have been better. I think it would make the boss, I think these three changes would make the boss way better to fight and way less frustrating, right? Because honestly, I like the idea of it, but the execution is so fucking horrendous. And again, it just does so much fucking damage. So yeah, honestly, I can't put it in F tier because the boss honestly is not as slow as some of the others here. And it's also not as hard, truth be told, despite the damage that it does, so D tier. Next up we have Warped Yk'Lagor, and I don't know if this boss is because I do it with magic, but essentially like it doesn't take a lot of damage. This boss is usually kinda slowish to kill. I mean, it's not that slow, it takes like 30 seconds maybe. But like, yeah, it's slower to kill because like you just don't deal a lot of damage. While other bosses you're like dishing out 1, 2, 3k damage. This boss you're dishing out like fucking 300, 500, you know, which is not bad because the boss doesn't have a lot of HP, but wow, is it not good. The only attack that this boss really has is one where it will like put tendrils on the ground and then there's like 4 tendrils that come towards you, and you have to get out of the way because otherwise it will 1 HP you, I think, or something like that. It won't kill you, but it will leave you like super low HP. So I mean, obviously nowadays that isn't as big of a danger as back then because, you know, with EOC and everything, again, the bosses just don't do that much damage to you. They usually do like double digits damage maybe, so not a lot. But yeah, like overall I actually like the design of the Warped Yk'Lagor. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, honestly, you know, maybe removing the damage cap, again, I don't know if it's because I do it with magic, because I main magic, but for the most part it just doesn't take a lot of damage, and yeah, that makes it a bit slower, but it's not a bad boss, so you know, I'm gonna put it B tier. Next up we have Dreadnought, pretty much the upgraded version of Remernaught. It's fine, I would say. Honestly, it's not as cool as Remernaught, but it also has a mechanic where like it will stun you and deal a lot of damage. Most of the times I don't see it, I just go through the boss. Again, not much to say. I do like the cutscene where like he just smashes 2 of his like brutes. It's pretty cool. Outside of that, it's fine. It's a C tier. Okay, we're down to 3. So next up, Hope Devour. Again, pretty much like the Dreadnought, there's the mechanic where it will deal a lot of damage, but outside of that you just easily kill it like any of the beasts. That's pretty much it. I do like the design quite a lot, so I'm gonna put it in B instead. Next up we have the Last Seeker World... Wait, did I put Gorger? Yeah, it's Gorger. No, it's not Grogger. Wait, fucking, let me go to the wiki. Okay, it is called World Gorger, but in my file I wrote Grogger for some reason, so here it's fine, but the name that I gave to the file is not. Either way, World Gorger, Shukarhaz. Or should it be Shukarhaz? I'm gonna go with Shukarhaz. I think it sounds better than Shukarhaz. Shukarhaz? No, it's Shukarhaz. Yeah, it's Shukarhaz. Anyway, this boss, pretty much like the Runebound Behemoth, also has a mechanic where like you need to kill because there's 3 eyes on the wall and each one represents an attack style, and you need to kill them because otherwise the boss is immune to remove the damage cap. The thing about this boss is if you kill all 3, the boss will become immune until the eyes open again, right? So the way you want to do it is usually defeat the 2 eyes. That will increase the damage the boss will deal to you, but will lower its defense. So if you kill the melee and the ranged eye, essentially you will be putting a cap on the boss of how much damage you can do to it with those styles, but you'll uncap it how much you can do with the magic style, which again is the one I main, for example. So most of the times you kill 2 eyes, you kill the boss. That's pretty much it, instead of killing all of 3 eyes. But yeah, most of the times, and contrary to the runebound Behemoth, you just need 1 rotation of it. The eyes actually stay closed for quite a bit. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much to say. I will say, out of all of the Seekers, I think that this style is by far the most different. Not my favorite, but it is a pretty interesting one. But yeah, not much other than that, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. And lastly, we have the last demon, the Kal'Ger the Warmonger, which is a boss. I think it's trash. First of all, compared to every single other boss, this is supposed to be like the final boss of Dungeoneering. Again, no problem with that. If I didn't have to grind a fucking skill, but because I do, hey, the boss has way too much HP compared to all of these. Remember how I said like the Sagittarius is like 10k HP, maybe 9.5k, so it's pretty easy to like kill it. The Warmonger has 80,000 HP. For a Dungeoneering boss, quite a lot. This is legit like a minute and a half boss fight. The boss fight itself, it will attack you with all of the combat styles, and it will do actually quite a decent amount of damage, even post DOC. Like, I still need to put in the Soul Split prayer in order to make sure that I don't die, and you know, like, if the raid is scaled to multiple players, oh boy will they do some fucking damage, right? Like, it will do some serious damage. Again, much like Blink, I don't get why it does so much damage, but yeah, I don't get why it does have so much HP as well. Again, I get it was supposed to be the final boss, but still. Another thing I don't like is the fact that there's animations. I think they changed it so you can do damage during the animation, but it has these animations of going across the like lava pit to go to the weapons on the walls. While that is nice in theory, and I think that's why the boss has so much HP, so like you can actually have time to do those animations, it makes it really annoying. I would rather them do like something where it just sort of like gear switches, you know, and just, you know, switches gear and just starts attacking you with something different, because yeah, otherwise really annoying. There is an orb in the arena that you can take that will take you to the other side of the arena that you only use if you're using melee, which I don't know why you would, but I guess there's that. But it also damages you, so I don't understand why you're punishing melee players. There's been a couple of bosses like the Necrolord, for example, that you can't exactly do them with melee, and melee for this is kind of bad, but yeah. So honestly, I do like the boss though, like how it looks, like the boss looks really cool, like really menacing and stuff like that. And sometimes you can get different animations when you first unlock the room, like you can have other demons come out, like the Bloodchiller, for example, you know, being like, oh, you know, the floors above got compromised, and then the Warmonger like kills him, or you know, all the floors above are safe, and then you know, it just goes away. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, but it just takes. I mean, honestly, it's not as hard to deal with. It's not as annoying. So I'm gonna put it in D tier. Yeah, and that's pretty much my list. So yeah, honestly, I thought I was gonna dislike more bosses than I thought I did, but it's pretty balanced, I would say, right? Like pretty balanced. But yeah. Obviously, you know, towards the top we have bosses that are fast, that are usually easy to deal with, or the mechanics aren't very annoying, and towards the bottom we just have bosses that deal way too much fucking damage, have way too much damage, have annoying mechanics, have annoying prayers, take way too fucking long to complete, right? So yeah, you can see the perspective that these were from. It's pretty clear that the better bosses were the ones that were, you know, in the first few floors. Like, we have 3 frozen here, 4 from the abandoned floors, 1 for furnished, 1 for occult, while here, for example, you know, we have 2 from furnished, 1 from abandoned, 1 for frozen, I guess 2 from here, 2 occult, 2 from warped, right? So yeah, essentially the tendency is the earlier Dungeoneering bosses were just better in terms of design than the later Dungeoneering bosses, clearly, even when it comes to grinds. So yeah, but I mean, honestly, something that I really enjoyed was how a lot of these bosses are actually very interesting in terms of like they're fun to complete for the first time. Like, for a skill that came out in 2010, pre-OC, and having 30 bosses and each one of them is like its own mechanic, I'm impressed, you know, especially because again, like a lot of them just feel like completing a quest. Because like the Gluttonous Behemoth or, you know, the Shadow Forger Ihlakhizan, you know, it's like fighting these bosses doesn't feel so much like a fight as it feels like solving a puzzle. Because like you're just sort of sitting there like, oh, I get it, so, you know, like, okay, he's eating, what do I do? Well, I mean, just stand in front of it so it can eat, and then it's like, that's the solution for the boss, you know, like, a lot of these first bosses more feel like a puzzle that you need to complete rather than a fight you need to complete, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much my tier list. I'm gonna leave the link in the description for you to do yours, and I'll see you next week with another, probably, Dungeoneering tier list.